The need for fundraising was more than apparent, and as the Embassy Theater Foundation formed under the direction of its first president, Bob Goldstine, a grassroots volunteer effort embraced the challenges of restoring not just the organ, but an entire building showing signs of neglect.
We envisioned legitimate theater in here rather than the movie house.
The group would come face to face with the enormity of the reclamation project, and through its leaking roof, antiquated heating and cooling equipment, tarnished floors and blackened walls, not everyone had the same positive outlook.
People's expectations were not that a place like this was going to survive. I didn't know any better as I walked in here those first few times and smelled that old dank smell and watched those people who just believed that they were going to save this place.
A call was made out on about December 31st of 1973, and they said they'd like to have some volunteers come in and help the Oregon Committee take care of the building.
It started out pretty quietly because it's hard to believe that a group of people who come in here on Saturdays and tinker with an organ and try to keep an old, very crumbly building going are really going to be able to pull off keeping something like this going.
I was in charge of the House Committee, which means I was in charge of all the volunteers.
You just worked. You didn't, the admiring it was going to come later.
We had started a process of getting together down here every Saturday morning, and so we became kind of an unofficial Saturday morning work crew that kept it growing and expanding over time.
Amid bankruptcy proceedings and Goldstein's tireless efforts to fend off demolition, the foundation stood its ground with a helping hand seemingly provided by an old friend.
You almost feel sort of strange in talking about it, but I can remember the times that you sort of looking for an answer to something, and it was sort of like, well, yeah, why don't you do that? Maybe Bud's helping you out.
Bud's ghost remains in this theater. And I remember when he died, my father with several other people went up on the roof of the embassy and sprinkled his ashes to keep him here.
Some of the really dangerous things that people would do around here while they were volunteering, climbing up to the gridiron on the stage and just getting into all kinds of precarious positions where they could fall, and it never happened. And of course, there's the illogical explanation of that is that Bud Berger's ghost is watching over us.
If he's up there, he's looking down on us and he's encouraging us.
The small group that had come together to rescue an organ was now fully vested in the project. Controlling interest in the embassy would be a meaningful progression and a commitment to finish what the foundation had started. A mission to restore, preserve, and operate Indiana's largest historic theater.
We were sort of awarded custody of the building for $1 a month, I believe, and we did that for a couple of years with the idea that we could buy it, and they set a price. We needed $250,000 to pay for this building, and that got it lock, stock, and barrel.
It was a huge amount of money for that time, and they didn't have, this wasn't a well-established group that was accustomed to raising money.
It's boiled down to where it's going to have to be probably in $5, $10, $20 donations.
These were just people who decided this theater was not going to come down. That organ was not going to disappear and never be heard again.
The volunteers came from all over. They came from Huntertown, Van Wert. We had people from all over. And it didn't just Fort Wayne people that saved this theater. There was even word out that they thought we should just tear this down and we'd have a parking lot. But there was no need for a parking lot. There was nobody down here anyway. Everything was empty. The city was dying at that time. And this was really the only spark that really got this end of the town going again, the embassy. But we didn't have the support that we thought we was going to get. Kids came out and gave their nickels and dimes. People came for anything that we did. They came here and supported us. And we had auctions. It wasn't real easy.
I mean, we can't discount the contributions of the local movers and shakers. But I mean, if it hadn't have been for the grassroots support, they probably wouldn't have been interested either.
It made it possible for people like Bob Goldstine, who had all the connections to what he used to call the old money in those communities, to approach those folks and say, hey, look what the community has done. Come on, let's get on board and help us out.
In the spring of 1975, the foundation assumed full ownership, finalizing its purchase of the Embassy Theater and paving the way for additional improvements in the years that followed.
Everybody was starting to feel pretty comfortable that the project was safe, that it had been successful, that the theater was beginning to function and produce revenue, that the restoration work was starting to happen.
The renovation of the stage, moving the stage wall further on back to give us more depth to the stage, allowed for more of the touring Broadway companies that required that larger room. The first Broadway show that came through here was Irene, and it got good response from the community. They promoted it well, and the attendance was great, and it was just a real high for everybody involved. And then when the Philharmonic decided to make this their home, that was another big positive. It inspired everyone.
The thing that kept it going was you could see the potential, you could see the future.
I think the legacy that the Embassy Theater Foundation and its founders have left for Fort Wayne is the luxury and the elegance and just the high quality of the experience of coming into this building and attending one of the many different kinds of events it can host. They didn't let us lose that.
They now have school children coming down here, learning the history and taking the role of some of the people that were involved in this early on. My goodness, we probably never thought of that happening in 1970, but it's happening today. How rewarding can you get?
This place really is alive for people. And I think that's what helped those volunteers get attracted to the embassy in those early years, and that's what helped them save it. I and the rest of the community are still very grateful that people are becoming members and making donations and volunteering hours of time and effort here.
Today, the Embassy Theater remains as it was many, many, many years ago. I have heard that many of the entertainers booked into the Embassy these days will walk out on the stage and be amazed when they look out and see the beauty of this theater, the size of it. There aren't too many of these houses left in the entire United States.
Everyone who becomes a member and makes a financial contribution to the embassy is making an important contribution to the vitality and the health and the quality of life in Fort Wayne.
Because we not only have a Philharmonic Orchestra here, we have all the Broadway shows coming in, we have major stars. How immediate can you get?
There were all sorts of things where people would donate things for us, help us through this.
Yes, it was so crowded I lost my seat. Luckily, it was an old suit. But I had a
It
nice...
was sad and scary to think that this might be torn down. We're worth this, is what the message I get when I walk in this building.
This has, in fact, sort of met the vision that a lot of us had.
It's very satisfying to see what this place has become. It's gratifying.
Well, come on, get back in and let's get started.
I think most of us feel that we got more out of it than what we gave. But it shows you what people can do if they decide that's what they want.
They were heroes. They helped save this theater. These are the people who worked very, 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 very hard to clean it up and make it presentable again.